Hi viewers, welcome to the first full-length episode of GWDGAF, the show where we give highly opinionated takes on the latest games and news of the industry. Tonight we're taking a look at several titles, but first up, there's a pretty important one coming out real soon. Let's take a look. And of course, one of the most anticipated titles of this year is Diablo 3, coming out on May 15th. Let's take a look. Diablo 3 is the latest in a series of Diablo clones, trying to revamp and revolutionise the genre by adding in quaint new features aimed at enhancing the classic dungeon-delving hack-and-slash gameplay. Diablo 2 introduced multiplayer and themed locations, pulling the player out of the ever-deepening dungeon and putting them in a world of never-evolving, cock-measuring competitions via Battle.net. Diablo 3 continues this marvellous money-making format, now in glorious 3D in an all-new hat. Now with the ability to lead several companions to their death, and with reprised roles of one-off comedy accents, this title is set to sell millions on the name alone. So set your phases to consumerist whore and prepare for May Day 15th.
So, are you one of those weirdos like me that has a Mac and actually wants to play games? Well, if you have $3 spare, here's a little gem for you called Kung Fu Kill Force. Available now on the Mac App Store, this should fulfill your entire need for side-scrolling beat-em-ups that involve one level, basically just score fests. It's your typical arcade game where you have to top the score of your previous efforts. It's a very old school system, one that sort of works, and it's a very shallow game in that sense. But really, that's all it needs to be. It just needs to do its one thing really good. It is an indie game that doesn't step out of its range. Unlike a lot of developers that decide to have the big scale goal that they can never achieve because they simply have gone way beyond what they're capable of, this one actually just goes for the simplicity of it all. A game that is very simple and yet is executed well. And in that sense, this game covers it all. Visually, it's the same old pixel retro crap. I don't like it, but hey, that's up to them. Soundtrack's solid. It's a very solid game to play. I mean, it has very, again, solid, word I'm using a lot today, very solid controls. It's all very chunky, very quick, and reliable, which is all this game really needed to be. Now for $3, you can't really go wrong, and it's something that everybody should try on the Mac Store at least once. I mean, what have you got to lose? If you love the game, you've just come across an absolute gem. If you hate it, you just lost $3 and actually got to try something new. Now, this originally started as a Mac competition to build a game in a few weeks, and I'm glad to see that something really good has come out of it. So, buy it now in the App Store, $3, you probably won't regret it. I didn't.
Last week saw the re-release of a classic RPG indie title, Avernum, for Windows. Already released earlier this year on the Mac and iOS devices, Avernum is a revamped and updated remake of an old title of the same name. Developed by Spiderweb Software, the new Avernum release has been rebuilt from the ground up, given a fresh and more contemporary interface, whilst retaining the many hours of gameplay and in-depth storylines. Avernum was a remake of an even earlier series titled Exile, and followed the tale of rebellious heroes thrown into an underground series of caves by the malevolent Emperor Hawthorne. The caves were discovered by the Empire mages a time ago and was attemptedly settled by the Empire until the various perils made them retreat and seal the magic gate to a one-way trip, conveniently adapting it to a prison for all those unwanted races and rebellious vocalists. Avernum is a dangerous place. Between the many monsters that inhabit it, the cold dank dark of the caves and the scarcity of food, it's hard living for Avenites. Constantly faced with death, they turn into pale and sickly lethe figures, easily distinguishable from the suntown overworlders that newly delve into the abyss. In the remake, you control a party of 4 characters in a turn-based isometric system, guiding them through the caves and completing quests to achieve your ultimate goal, escaping back to the surface. This is a change from the original series, which gave you space for 6 characters, allowing you to have a multitude of different classes that would assist with a variety of puzzles and battles you face. Also with the system revamp, the magic and skills tree have been simplified to reflect another recent release, Abaddon. Despite this, the system doesn't really lose out. The control scheme feels much more easy to manage, and there doesn't seem to be as much loss by way of spells. Avernum offers an extremely high number of hours of gameplay with a variety of different quests to keep players occupied, but be warned, even with the new graphics, there's still a large amount of text to get through. It's not a game if you're the type who doesn't wish to immerse yourself wholly into the theme. The text descriptions and conversations add to the really vibrant setting Vogel and his team have created, but really require an attitude that enjoys reading rather than skipping through. Not that you'd be overly hindered by skipping the text, but you're missing out on what has made this independently developed title such an iconic piece of indie history. Avernum Escape from the Pit is available right now on Macintosh and iOS devices as well as Windows. Check out Spiderweb Software's website for more details on where you can get a copy, or check out the Steam Marketplace for this and other Spiderweb Software titles, and discover the reason why AAA titles are a waste of time.
fucking insulting.
Okay, this is a really difficult review to actually do. Coming from me, for everyone else, this is fine. See, on the website, I've been very critical of these retro type indie games. In fact, everything this game stands for, I'm against. At least I have been on paper. Everything from the retro graphics to the douchey indie attitude that the developer Polytronic's been giving, I should hate this game without any reservations. And the reason why this review is so difficult is this game has actually turned out really, 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 really good. And it shits me to no end. You play Gomez, the adorable little funky techno blob that you see jumping around all these wacky little lands. And the reason why the game's called Fez is he wears a fez. I know, that's the one bit that really shits me the most. But this fez gives him the special abilities to rotate his 2D world. And thus you have the gimmick of this game. Basically, think of this as like Echo Chrome, only with a bit more, well, I won't say class, I mean, Echo Chrome's all about classical music and bullshit like that, but more with a 2D sense of the retro style of the word. Whatever that means. So, as you can tell, it has the old, well, some say 8-bit, it's more 16-bit. I mean, trust me, your NES never did graphics like this. And with that, you end up jumping around collecting these yellow cubes to reassemble into larger cubes, which eventually are meant to combine into a larger cube that was destroyed in the first few seconds of the game. It's never really explained much, you kind of have to finish it to go, oh, yes, and even then, no. See, the game's kind of deep like that. Well, if by deep I mean they don't tell you anything. That can be deep. It's a simple mechanic, but handled really well. Puzzles are well thought out, level design is actually really, genuinely fantastic, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it to turn into a whole conglomeration of crappity crap. And the overall feel of it is very inviting. There's a sense of mystery while being very familiar, which really helps drive the overall experience that it provides. You are never left struggling to find your way around this world, except for when you get to the world map, which is this weird cube sort of graph thing that you rotate, which is like the one design flaw that they have in the entire title. I mean, you will get the occasional glitch and loading issues in this game. I mean, for instance, if you jump and rotate the world at the same time, there's a good chance you will go flying off the edge. But the game is very forgiving as there's infinite lives and you'll respawn back to where you need to be. Now, as the game progresses, you start to find these little splotches, these little black holes that have developed. This is because of, you know, it's explained briefly that you have been twisting the world too much. And this just makes the levels more complex, more difficult, and this really adds a whole new layer to it. The difficulty just increases at just the right pace, which is a very difficult thing to do, but they've done without a problem. To back all this up, there is a, as they say, a groundbreaking soundtrack. It's all 8-bit. I've got playing in the background here. You can download the soundtrack already, as most of these indies try to cash in as quickly as possible. But it just adds to the overall style. I mean, I am very down on the whole retro thing, as I think developers can do much better with their time and effort. But I tell you what, it actually pulls itself together this time. It could have been done so much worse. As a whole, like I've said, there are very few flaws to be seen here. If you have an Xbox, I very highly recommend you grab this title. It's very unique, it has very few problems. I'm going to put this right up there as candidate of Game of the Year for me, at least in the downloadable sense. I cannot recommend it more. Go out and get it. Please, support these douchebags, even if they are indie douchebags themselves.
Reviving an old IP is the newly released Syndicate. Making the move from action tactics to first-person look what I can do, Syndicate puts you into a future world full of stilted action and poor field of view. Onto the game itself, completely rehauling the universe of its namesake, Syndicate informs us of a farcical scenario whereby 51% of the world's population doesn't present an economical draw for companies to flood the market with cheap, non-brain chip solutions to internet access, creating an unlikely class divide whereby the poor actually have no means of existing. But aside from that, story-wise the game also introduces a persona to the agents, a travesty of emotion considering that the original was about mind-wiped kidnap victims being used by unethical corporations. The gameplay is repetitive and mostly uninspiring. The only real fun was feeling invincible with a minigun on the back of a speeding train. With such limited gameplay and benign boss battles, overall there was no real need to revamp this title. The original gameplay could have still been viable, and this, well, probably could have stood by itself. But instead a cash-in title was used, and we're likely to see future remakes to the key of this game style.
Time. It's everywhere. No matter where you look, time surrounds us like an echo of something great from far away. And yet, throughout this, you have to wonder, despite the fact that I am a co-creator of this website and the show, how did I not have the time to actually host and introduce it to you? Yes, these are the great questions that we must ponder for many eons to come. It would also help if I had better time management, but this is regardless of it. Listen, I'm not gonna own up to you, fuck you! It's a stupid show anyway.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week, so join us again next time when we'll be bringing you more opinions and also a few new segments just to spice things up a little. Or you can check out our website, either way, it's all the same shit, honestly.